Everybody loves a rumor, so let's spill the malt and talk about the Diageo 2023 special releases. Hey guys, welcome back to Whiskey on the West Coast. My name is Matt, and today we're going to be talking about the Diageo special releases for the year 2023. Now, earlier this year, we had some blogs, some different posts online that were displaying labels that were purported to be the special releases coming up for 2023. Now, we can't confirm that these are exactly the whiskeys that are going to be released, but I do believe that these labels are the correct whiskeys that will be featuring in the Diageo special releases for 2023. Now, there was only 7 of these labels that were leaked. However, when trying to find some clues as to what will be released at my local government store's premium spirits release for this fall, I saw a preview of the 8th and final label for this range, as well as a price, interestingly enough. That gave me the inspiration to say, okay, this is the time. This is when we're going to start talking about the Diageo special releases for 2023. What ones I'm excited about, what ones I'm a bit skeptical about, and what ones fall somewhere in the middle. Now, I have a Talisker 8-year-old from Caribbean Rum Cask. This is the special release from 2020. The reason why this is on the table is because this is the last Diageo special release that I actually went ahead and purchased. And that has a lot to do with how a lot of whiskey enthusiasts, a lot of whiskey lovers think about the Diageo special releases. Now, some people are really see the special releases as an opportunity to go in and buy a new special version of their favorite distillery, whether that's the Lagavulin, the Talisker, the Oban, or others. And that's absolutely fine. And I think that's what a lot of people look forward to with this. However, whiskey lovers, whiskey enthusiasts sometimes cast a skeptical eye towards these bottlings because of the ever-increasing prices on them for what is oftentimes entirely mediocre whiskey in the bottle. Not always, absolutely not always, and honestly, to each their own. If you love these whiskeys and always find them spectacular, great, I'm happy for you. They're there for you. However, I've had samples of some of them recently and found some to be disappointing for the prices asked, which is why, again, the last one I had was from 2020. I think this year, though, that's about to change because there's one particular whiskey that is going to be released in this 2023 range that has me very, very excited. So let's talk about these 8 Diageo special releases for 2023. We're going to kick off this list by talking about some whiskeys that I'm just a bit skeptical about. I'm not quite certain how they're going to turn out. And the number one candidate for skepticism on this list is going to be the follow-up to the Mortlach non-age statement 2022 release that I would dub the Mortlach Harry Potter in the Chamber of Diageo's Prophets. It has a giant owl on it. It's very moody. All I can think every time I look at it is Harry Potter. Well, they went ahead and provided us with yet another non-age statement Mortlach for the 2023 releases. Now, this one has what looks like a Japanese samurai figure on the front, which is kind of cool. Especially if you're into, samurai, that imagery or that history. However, one of my biggest problems with the Harry Potter Mortlach edition was the fact that it was a non-age statement whiskey that we didn't know all that much about, that was retailing for over $440 Canadian in British Columbia. It might have been cheaper where you are, but I don't imagine it was all that much cheaper. This one, however, the reason why it has a Japanese samurai on the front, I believe, is because they're using ex-Japanese single malt casks, as well as ex-Pinot Noir wine casks to go ahead and create the kind of cask maturation, the interesting cask maturation that we oftentimes get with these special releases. It is being brought to us at 58% alcohol, which is a plus. However, again, we have no information about the age. So my hesitation here is we don't really know all that much about what we're getting in this bottle, about the quality. And without knowing the price, I'm suspicious that it's going to be priced similarly to the 2022 Mortlach non-age statement. If it is, I would have to try and be blown away to be purchasing a bottle. This is why I'm skeptical about the Mortlach non-age statement 2023 Diageo special release from Japanese ex-single malt casks and Pinot Noir casks. Before we get to the next one on this list, I just want to give Diageo at least some credit here. It does appear that all these, or at least most of them are close to, if not a little bit under, cask strength. So that's really exciting to see from Diageo. At least they're giving us a little extra bang for our buck. But as we go into the next one, it's a distillery I really love. I happened to visit the town that it's made in, and I tried some really interesting expressions from it. However, this one, I'm not sure how it's going to work. And so again, I'm going to be interested to try it, but I'm uncertain how the cask makeup and the direction they took it is going to match up with the spirit character. What I'm talking about here is an Oban 11-year-old. Now the Oban 11-year-old here, it's 58%. This Oban gets the rum cask treatment that the Talisker 8-year-old I was talking about earlier got essentially as well. Now my problem with this is Oban's a fairly delicate spirit. It's a lot of nuance. It's a coastal malt. It's playing off those things, and it's lightly peated. And I'm afraid that the sweetness from the rum casks is going to overwhelm the character of that spirit and leave us with something that's not really recognizable as Oban. Maybe they pulled off the perfect balance, so the perfect harmony. However, I'm not going to give them the benefit of the doubt with that. I want to try this before I would go ahead and buy it. And again, there's always the consideration of price. That's why I'm skeptical of this Oban 11-year-old rum cask special release for 2023. Next up on the list of the whiskeys I'm skeptical about, unfortunately, is the Lagavulin 12-year-old cask strength special release for 2023, which comes to us from Don Julio Añejo Tequila casks. Now there's some brand synergy here with Diageo because they also own Don Julio. So that explains how they sourced these casks. You might be wondering, well, what's wrong with using ex-tequila casks? That's actually pretty cool. That's not something we've seen from Lagavulin before. And I agree, that is pretty cool. You might be wondering if I've lost like the spirit of wonder, of experimentation, of just like, hey, what does that taste like? Maybe I'm dead inside. Maybe my heart has gone cold for a whiskey. I assure you it hasn't. My trepidation here is that they have taken what is probably the strongest release in the Diageo Special releases, the Lagavulin 12 cask strength, and they've tweaked it again for a second year straight. Last year, 2022, I believe, was Virgin Oak casks and the most heavily peated whiskeys they can find in their warehouse. I want to return to the classic Lagavulin 12-year-old cask strength that I know, like this 2017 Lagavulin 12 cask strength. It's magnificent whiskey. I adore it, and I'm glad I have some left because it seems like they're getting more and more experimental. I'm longing for a return to something that's more like what we're used to with the Lagavulin 12 cask strength. I'm desperately curious what tequila casks, Añejo tequila casks, are gonna do with Lagavulin spirit. I'm just a little disappointed that I'm not gonna get a return to the Lagavulin that I think is the strongest Lagavulin in the range. The 2023 release is going to have a percentage of 56.4%, so we're bang on there. That's great. They're bringing a robust whiskey to us. I'm guessing it's cask strength. Yeah, I'm just not so certain about the cask type, which is why I am skeptical about the Lagavulin 12 cask strength Añejo tequila casks from Don Julio. The last of the whiskeys for the 2023 release that I'm skeptical about is none other than the one that I actually saw in the BC Liquor Store Taste Magazine previewing the November Premium Spirits release. So I got to see the name, the cask types, the percentage, as well as the price for this whiskey in British Columbia anyways. So this one, unfortunately, is actually one of the ones that I'm often the most tempted by. It's the Talisker release. This is the one that the label wasn't released yet. Now, this is a Talisker non-age statement, be called or nicknamed the Wild Explorador. It's a combo of ruby, white, and tawny port casks. It's 58.7%. I'm gonna assume that's cask strength, but it isn't necessarily. And it retails in British Columbia for $190 Canadian plus the 15% tax. So you're gonna be over $200 to bring this whiskey home with you in British Columbia. Now, why am I skeptical about this release? Well, personally, I've always been a fan of the Talisker releases. You saw the last special release I bought was the Talisker 8-year-old from 2020. I've been tempted by the Talisker 11-year-old from 2022. Before that, I adored the Talisker 15-year-old from, I believe, either 2018 or 2019. Great releases. I am skeptical because they've gone ahead and removed the age statement from the Talisker release. they've put out, I think, multiple 8-year-old special releases in this range. Does that mean that this is under 8 years old? Is this 7-year-old or 6-year-old or 5-year-old Talisker masquerading around in some port casks to help bring it up a notch? We already have the Talisker Port Rouge or Port Rouge. I'm not exactly certain how to pronounce the name, but we have a port cask Talisker whiskey already in the range. So why did we need this one? Because it's cask strength? Perhaps. Because they ran out of ideas? That might be it too. I'm not sure. I'm still going to be tempted by this because it has a nautical theme on it with a really old wooden sailing ship, it looks like, which, I mean, yeah, I'll sign up. I love anything nautical. But I think sense is going to get the better side of me. And unless I try this and I'm blown away, I'm not going to be buying this bottle. So I am skeptical about the Talisker special release for 2023, the Wild Explorador. Next up, I'm going to be talking about two whiskeys that, for my own reasons, my own shortcomings, I'm somewhat ambivalent towards. I just don't have a really solid opinion, good or bad, about these coming releases. And I want to talk about them just because, well, they are part of the release and you may have an entirely different take on them. So the first one I'm going to talk about in this section is going to be the Singleton of Glendullan 14-year-old from the 2023 special releases. It's 55% ABV. Again, 14 years old, and it's finished in French oak casks, white wine French oak casks. I'm going to try and pronounce it correctly, Chardonnay de Bourgogne. And these wine casks, they're often tricky to deal with. However, I have a lot more faith in white wine casks after having some experience with white wine cask, like Long Row and these sorts of things. I think it doesn't quite go as acidic and sulfuric as red wine can. However, I'm still skeptical because a wine cask oftentimes is used to mask whiskey that's just uninteresting. Hopefully that's not what they did here, but I've never really been drawn to Glendullan as of yet, probably from my own shortcomings. Again, I haven't explored them in the independent bottlings as much as I would like. And so I don't hear that distillery and go, oh, I have to try that. Maybe you have had Glendullan independent bottlings, maybe you've had official bottlings you've been just blown away by. I haven't had that relationship with this distillery, and understanding what they are going to be charging for a non-age statement Talisker, I feel like it's going to be over the odds for a 14-year-old Glendullan. The next one that I'm feeling almost sort of neutral about, and for no fault of its own, it's all on me in this case, is a Glenkinchie 27-year-old. I believe it's presented at cask strength at 58.3%. And it is brought to us from refill American barrels and European oak butts. So we got some great cask types there to make for a real classically presented aged whiskey. So all credit to Diageo bringing us something with a high age statement. 27-year-old Glenkinchie is not something you see every day. My problem with this, and again, it's entirely on me, this is not the fault of Diageo for making this. Diageo's prices are as such that I believe this whiskey is likely going to be in the 4-figure bracket. I believe this is going to cost over $1,000 Canadian where I'm at least after taxes. That is just a bridge too far for me. That is not inside my whiskey budget. And while I desperately like to try this, because I'm fairly certain this whiskey is going to be good from this 2023 special release range, I just don't have that kind of coin, that type of cash to splash out on a bottle of whiskey. Maybe one day, but today is not that day. But this Glenkinchie 27-year-old could be very good. I just have to put it out of my mind because it's just simply not a possibility for me to acquire. Before we get to one of the whiskeys I'm more confident and I'm actually optimistic about, I wanted to go ahead and thank you guys for watching this far into this video. If you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe. Like this video, comment down below, share it with others. It really does help. And I really appreciate you guys watching my videos and listening to me ramble and rant and talk about rumors about whiskey. It's just boggles my mind and I really appreciate it. If you want to go ahead and comment down below, I would be really curious to find out, have you given up on the Diageo special releases? Are you someone who looks forward to them? If so, what was the last Diageo special release that you purchased? And is there one in this video that you are particularly looking forward to? Or again, have you just kind of thrown them out the window and said, yeah, I'm just tuning out and not listening anymore? Really interested to find out how you guys feel about these releases. So we're moving on to a whiskey that I am actually pretty optimistic about because it has all the right stats to it. The only wild card for me seems to be the price that will be asked. That is the Clynelish 10-year-old natural cask strength, bottled at 57.5%, and it comes to us in a first fill bourbon cask. Yes, that is exactly how I like my Clynelish. I love it to be distillate forward, not covering it up with sherry or a wine cask. I want that waxy, lovely, fruity, and somewhat floral Highland character out front and center. I really enjoy Clynelish even at young ages, from the SMWS, from the Single Malt Scotch range, from Elixir Distillers. I have an 8-year-old Clynelish that's 48%. That is actually still really wonderful. So young Clynelish, I'm not scared by it. Cask strength, perfect. This is excellent stuff. My worry is the price. When we look at the Clynelish 12-year-old from 2022, that was priced at $310 Canadian. What I paid for my 8-year-old Single Malt Scotland independent bottle of Clynelish was under $100. This is where my trepidation lies with the pricing that Diageo chooses to implement for its whiskeys. It has every right to charge whatever the heck it wants for these whiskeys. I have the right to walk away and say no. So I'm optimistic. I'm looking forward to seeing it. And I'm just hoping that that optimism isn't dashed by a ridiculous price point. We have arrived at the final whiskey on this list, and is the one I'm absolutely the most excited about. And that is because this whiskey is something that we as whiskey enthusiasts haven't seen before. We haven't tasted yet. It is a whiskey that is actually the first official bottling from this distillery. I don't think there's been any independent bottlings either. It's only been part of a blended scotch from Diageo called Collectivum. This is a 12-year-old release, so mature release from a new distillery, and that is the RoseIsle distillery. It's a RoseIsle 12-year-old natural cask strength, 56.5% release, and it's coming to us in first fill ex-bourbon casks and refill casks, which is super exciting proposition because that means we have a great chance to see what the spirit character is like. I'm super excited to get to know this whiskey, what it tastes like. Also, I'm going to be a little bit cautious about saying, okay, after tasting this, this is what RoseIsle is, because RoseIsle was actually created to be quite a chameleon spirit. The way their distillery is set up is they have changes they can make with their condensers in particular to change the type of whiskey they're making, whether it's like light and floral or whether it's a heavier spirit. They also play a lot with fermentation times. Sometimes their fermentation time is as long as 90 hours long. Really interesting distillery. So I'm wondering what they're going to provide us here and what this is going to taste like. It's super exciting to get to try a new distillery that we haven't got to know yet. I'm just hoping that this is affordable enough that I'll be able to, and if not, that I'll be able to source a sample from somewhere so that I can go ahead and try this whiskey. Either way, the RoseIsle 12-year-old cask strength 2023 Diageo Special release is by far the whiskey on this list that I am most excited about. That's the one that I'm going to be keen to see a price on. Thank you guys for watching this far with me. Once again, comment down below what your relationship is with the Diageo Special releases, and if any of these are standing out to you, if there's something on this list you want to go ahead and get when these are released. Otherwise, thank you once again. I hope you come back for more from the West Coast. Slàinte.